way to kind of show this off would just be with the demo. As you can see, we have a couple players here. I think this one's actually on Arbitrum. As you guys were saying, there are some issues with Score right now. Plus, we haven't really fully deployed there yet. But let's take a character like this one right here. So we have a few different aspects of the game. There's some PvE, essentially, where you can battle. You can actually battle a certain like monster, kind of like in Pokemon a little bit, where you would go in and fight something, and then you would get a little bit of experience here. As you can see, I got a little bit more experience. And then once you get to a max level, you can level up. If anybody's interested, we also have a video demo that kind of goes more in depth about each of the aspects of the game. But so this is basically like the PvE. It's really easy for us to add more monsters because we use a modular schema, basically just for creation. So each one's basically just a transaction putting in the field elements that are necessary for each new one. We also have items where you can craft. This account doesn't have any, but like I said, we have a demo where there are items and you be able to equip items to your player. And all of this actually happens on chain because right now I feel like a lot of the games are kind of more Web 2.5 because it's just easier. It's like the lower hanging fruit. I think it's easier to move things off chain, but we took the steps to make sure that everything was on chain. Also, there's potions you can consume, which are like instantaneous, which will increase your health or your mana, whichever one. But yeah, that's sort of the PvE. We have training here, which basically, you can click your character and essentially you stake for 2 minutes. And then it lets you boost up your health by 1. And if you don't want to have to do that, you can use your bag, which has potions to basically heal. For questing is pretty interesting. This is how you get the in-game currency, where you basically get gold and gem. And on the mainnet version that we have right now, essentially this lets you bridge in and out to another ERC 20 diamond contract. Yeah, we're using the diamond EIP 2535 as our upgrade pattern. Yeah, so that's basically kind of what we have right now. Questing to get resources. Training is what I showed you. The shop is where you actually like use your gold that you have to buy stuff. I guess it's not live on this version, but it's been live on the test net. This is where you can buy like equipment and potions. And the arena is kind of like how we have our PvP. So you can enter and someone can challenge you. And then we have a leaderboard basically using the subgraph. So basically whoever gets like the highest level of gets the highest level gets the most wins. That's how we kind of redistribute the tokens back into the economy, so that we keep our economic loop going. And then craft is pretty interesting. I mean, this is how you can upgrade items. We have multiple craft levels. Like one of them you use gems, so basically you would take a sword and upgrade the sword to become a more powerful sword. And that's being merged in mainnet right now. We actually already have the code for a lot of stuff. We're sort of just spreading out how we're deploying to Scroll mainnet, just because we don't want to deploy everything at once, because like we feel like our issue is mostly with marketing and not really our like core code. I mean, obviously the code could be a lot better, the project could be a lot better, there's things we need to add. But yeah, that's pretty much it. We have the ability to bridge players in and out. So you could bridge between networks if you want to play on Scroll, if you want to send resources to a different network. And that's kind of our game right now. So we have items that you could buy, craft, equip, and then you can fight with it to try to get rewards. In the future, we're going to be adding things like a farming simulator. I'm honestly the most excited about the FHE integration, which is like the fully homomorphic encryption using FHE VM. We're not really sure right now. We're actually working with Scroll to figure out how we're going to handle that bridge. Maybe using 712 messaging and some sort of like relayer on the client, basically, to essentially manage the fully homomorphically encrypted state. Essentially, what that allows you to do is have some sort of like real-time combat type of thing that we would want to introduce for like the arena. Things like that are pretty interesting because it's not really feasible in ZK yet. I think like investors, the market, smart money, whatever you want to call it, like there's like those people are still like really fixated on the fact that ZK is for privacy, even though really if you want to run an arithmetic expression over ciphertext, it really has to be done using FHE. This opens the door to things like Pokemon style combat where you can asynchronously advance a state synchronously. Other things, you know, that exist are other applications like poker,
Please note you have
which, you
one
know, we
minute
want to
left.
add gambling aspect. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this presentation. I don't know how much time we have left.
But that was
If there's more
just
to
on
talk,
time.
but all
Thank you
right,
so
yeah, let's
much.
go. Yeah, no
Lovely.
problem. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I have one question coming in from 3x Capital. How do you tackle gas prices for such volumes on off-chain actions?
Well, we don't really have any off-chain actions. I'm gonna assume that they meant on-chain actions.
On-chain, exactly.
Yeah. So that's a good question. That's actually a major issue that we have. You know, it's not like one of those like it's not like, hey, let's go and scroll where it's like another DEX or another lending thing or another DeFi thing or more infrastructure that's like kind of copy fork, more or less the same. Like our things, not every single thing is actually a financial transaction, right? You go on a DEX, you look at the amount of users versus the amount of transactions. So it's a huge problem because we want people to actually be using Web3 for the purpose of enjoying it and like getting some sort of extra value besides just immediate financial like gratification. Obviously, there are long-term implications, which is why we don't use some sort of like off-chain ZKP to handle our game state because we want it to be, you know, actually fair. So that's a long-winded way of saying that like I'm actually currently talking with Scroll about potentially setting up maybe some sort of like gaming rebate, which I think is going to be more common as people realize that, you know, we actually want to make games that aren't just like bullshit GameFi shit. That's just like, you know, a new skin on top of like existing crap or just off chaining things because it's easier and it's a lower hanging fruit. And hey, let's appease the masses by showing our rump. So basically, I think, you know, when we expand to other networks, you know, we think that the average gas price is going to come down, whether that's the sharding forks that come out, but also just Paymaster in general is getting more traction because I think networks are realizing that they've overinvested in infrastructure and there's not enough actual applications of people doing something. So you'd be surprised the amount of networks, whether that's something like Base or Arbitrum or even Scroll, right, that are willing to actually consider to subsidize some sort of transaction. So in the short term, I think that we are looking for some sort of subsidy, which I think is a win-win for a lot of networks because again, that gas stays within the validator set. But it's a work in progress. And I think that's a really good question because that's an issue we're facing.
Thanks for your most honest question. And out of own experience, I know that GameFi developers can have some challenges on creating a fun game to play, which is essential, yet also unhealthy economics. So, how do you create a balance in this to still have a fun game, yet incentivize players with healthy economics?
Yeah, another good question. I think a lot of times you have to ask yourself, like, why is somebody playing a Web3 game versus a Web2 game, right? Like, you play a like, look, a lot of these other games that you see in like the GameFi space, like, I consider it the Web 2.5 space, which is like, hey, look, like think about something like Pirate Nations, right? Like that, how the fuck they're like, oh, we're all fully on chain. It's like, no, you're not. Like, you're really using fully homomorphic encryption to maintain like the hand state. Like, I don't see a real scheme. What are you holding, like the non-ski in the client? You know what I mean? A lot of it's bullshit. So, you know, you gotta figure out your niche. In my opinion, this is just my opinion, right? I think you gotta find your niche. You gotta find the people that are actually interested in the Web3 mechanics because they want to play a fair game. They don't want to cut corners. And like, yeah, the issue is like you have to figure out how you're going to balance financial incentives because people are going to have to buy these assets. They're going to have to pay a lot of money for gas, right? So that's super tough. Which kind of like is part about the last question, but you also need to figure out like, okay, hey, we need to create a novel experience right here. Like, we can't just go and like copy some lending protocol, copy some DEX, copy some scroll name service, like copy something that's already existed, right? We need to produce something that's new. The artist part of it, don't get me wrong, and thankfully generative AI makes it a lot cheaper. The other thing is like, I think coming up with economic loops is important, right? You have to have good tokenomics. You have to have a place for people to use that token. You have to have that token have some sort of value. I think compartmentalizing the utility of different tokens plays a part of it. It allows you to tweak your economy. And again, being able to have a super everything on chain allows for a certain level of modularity that I think actually is its own fun. Like, we can talk over and over and over again about the psychological, you know, assumptions of like what is entertaining, what gets people off, what makes people like, want to fucking play a game. But to me, it just comes down to like, look, you got to figure out why people are playing this game specifically, because there's a million games. The only thing for us, I'll keep it short. I think when we keep it fully on chain, it allows us to iterate, allows us to be modular. And I think that, with the introduction of something like fully homomorphic encryption, we're just going to have a lot of things that are very unique, not only in gaming, but specifically the Web3 space.
Thank you for clarifying that, most definitely. And we have 1 minute left for our final question. It's from Case and Finance. Are you planning to launch a mobile version? And what is the estimation time for the token launch?
Yeah, so our token's actually already live. We're going to be launching more tokens. The first token is OMKG. Go cop our token. We're still pretty low right now. I mean, it's got still working out the tokenomics, but it's live. We're going to be launching other tokens, especially like the main governance token, which I think is the one, quote unquote, you're going to want to invest in, because that's the one that's actually going to, be the main token, the governance token. But we are live right now. We already have an OMKG token. I think it's kind of weird that like teams try to just deploy one token. I mean, sometimes it makes sense to me, and like I get the argument for it, but I think for gaming specifically, it's good to compartmentalize. Sorry, what was the other part of mobile? Yeah, the mobile thing, man. We're definitely considering that. We've tried it in the past, like 100%. We need to go mobile. It's vital to success. It's just one of those things. I think maybe once we get more funding and we can like kind of spread out a little bit more, we're just more concentrated on getting the core initial product done first, and then after that, 100% definitely got to tackle mobile, because that's going to be big. So it's definitely on our radar. We've already done some resizing. I mean, a lot of it's just CSS resizing and figuring out like what the UX needs to look like. So definitely a step we got to take. So it's on the roadmap.
Taproot, thank you for clarifying. I would really love to see that mobile version. Also, we're out of time, so thank you for your time to showcase your initiative today, and I wish you a great one.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Kai.
You're most welcome.